Every weekday morning, before breakfast, before the day begins, millions of Jewish men around the world do something remarkable. They take a black leather strap, and they wind it 7 times around their arm. Then they take a small black box, no bigger than a matchbook, and place it on their forehead. This is not decoration. Inside those small leather boxes are scrolls of parchment, handwritten, containing words considered so central to Jewish faith that they are recited the moment a person wakes up and the moment before they fall asleep. This practice has been documented for at least 2,000 years. Archaeologists have found these exact same boxes, preserved in the Dead Sea Scrolls, essentially unchanged from the ones worn today. And here is something that stopped me cold when I first learned it. According to the Talmud, it is not only human beings who wear these. The ancient rabbis taught that God does too. Today we are going to find out what is written inside these mysterious boxes, and what that astonishing claim in the Talmud actually means. Welcome. What you are about to learn is one of the most physically intimate expressions of faith in the entire world. Words from the Torah, bound directly to the body, to the arm that acts, to the mind that thinks. By the end of this video, you will understand not just what this practice is, but why Jewish tradition believes faith was never meant to live only in the mind. Before we go further, if these ancient teachings have given you something to think about, subscribe right now. One tap. Every week this channel goes deeper into the wisdom and traditions of the Jewish people, and this community keeps growing because people like you believe these things are worth understanding. Subscribe, and let's begin. This practice is called tefillin. Sometimes in older English texts, they are called phylacteries. There are 2 boxes, always 2. One is called the tefillah shel yad, the tefillin of the hand, worn on the upper arm, positioned so it faces the heart. The other is the tefillah shel rosh, the tefillin of the head, worn at the hairline, centered above the forehead. Both are small black leather boxes, and inside each one, tiny scrolls of parchment, handwritten by a trained scribe, using a quill and special ink reserved only for sacred texts. Every letter formed with precision, every scroll checked and rechecked for even the smallest error. The commandment for this practice comes directly from the Torah, appearing 4 separate times in the books of Exodus and Deuteronomy. The most famous of these verses is part of the Shema, the central declaration of Jewish faith. You shall bind them as a sign upon your hand, and they shall be as a symbol between your eyes. For nearly 2,000 years, confirmed by tefillin discovered among the Dead Sea Scrolls at Qumran, Jewish men have followed this instruction in precisely this way. Not as poetry, literally. So what exactly is written on those tiny scrolls? 4 specific passages. The first 2, from the book of Exodus, recount the story of the Exodus from Egypt, the liberation of the Jewish people from slavery. The third, from Deuteronomy chapter 6, is the Shema itself. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. The fourth, from Deuteronomy chapter 11, speaks about the consequences of remembering or forgetting God's commandments. 4 passages, each one foundational, each one written by hand, rolled tightly, and sealed inside these small boxes. Here is something fascinating. The box for the arm contains all 4 passages on a single piece of parchment, but the box for the head contains 4 separate compartments, each with its own tiny scroll. The rabbis explain this difference with remarkable insight. The arm represents action. In action, ideas tend to blend together. When you act with conviction, your beliefs work as one unified force. But the head represents thought, and thought requires distinction, the ability to separate one idea from another, to examine each one individually, to understand its own particular weight. So even in how these scrolls are organized, the tradition is teaching something about the difference between how we act and how we think. Now, here is the moment in this story that I find genuinely remarkable. The Babylonian Talmud, in Tractate Berachot, contains a teaching that stopped me the first time I read it. The rabbis ask a daring question. If human beings wear tefillin as an expression of their bond with God, does God, in some sense, wear tefillin as well? The Talmud answers, yes. And then it asks the obvious follow-up. What would be written inside God's tefillin? The Talmud's answer is this. A verse from the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 33, verse 29. Who is like your people Israel, a unique nation on earth? Think about what this teaching is saying. Human beings bind words about God to their own bodies as an expression of devotion, and the rabbis dared to imagine that God, in turn, carries words about his people as an expression of his own devotion to them. This is not a teaching meant to be taken as literal physics. It is a teaching about relationship, about mutual devotion. The rabbis were saying, this is not one-sided. The bond between the Jewish people and God is not only something humans express toward heaven. It is something that tradition dares to imagine flowing in both directions. A covenant. Not a command issued from a distance, but a relationship carried in this teaching on both sides. I want to pause here for a moment, because that image of devotion flowing in both directions is one of the most beautiful ideas in all of Jewish theology. If that idea moved you, hit the like button right now. 1 second. It helps more people find these teachings. And if you have not subscribed yet, now is the time. Because what comes next explains exactly how this object connects the body and the mind in a way that very few traditions have ever attempted. Why does Jewish tradition place one box on the arm and one on the head? The rabbis explain it with 3 words: heart, mind, action. The tefillin worn on the arm is positioned specifically so that it rests near the heart, the seat in ancient thought of emotion and intention. It is also worn on the arm that performs daily tasks, the arm of action. The tefillin worn on the head rests at the place the rabbis associated with thought and intellect. Together, the 2 boxes make a claim that is easy to state and remarkably difficult to live. Faith is not only a feeling, it is not only a thought, it must also become action. The rabbis were deeply suspicious of belief that stayed only in the mind. A person can believe something beautiful and never act on it. A person can feel moved and let that feeling fade by the time they reach the front door. Tefillin was designed to close that gap, to physically connect what a person believes, what a person feels, and what a person actually does with their hands each day. This is why tefillin is worn specifically during the act of prayer, the moment when belief is meant to become expressed, spoken, lived. Not abstract theology, a physical knot tied each morning, linking conviction to conduct. What I find most remarkable about tefillin is how little it has changed. The tefillin discovered among the Dead Sea Scrolls, dating back roughly 2,000 years, are, in their essential form, nearly identical to the tefillin worn today. Same structure, same idea, same 4 passages. Empires have risen and fallen. Languages have shifted. Entire civilizations that once seemed permanent have disappeared from the earth. And every weekday morning, in cities all over the world, New York, Jerusalem, Buenos Aires, Melbourne, Jewish men continue to wind a leather strap around their arm, exactly as it was wound 2,000 years ago. A boy typically begins this practice around his 13th birthday, his bar mitzvah, the moment Jewish tradition recognizes him as responsible for these commandments in his own right. From that day forward, for the rest of his life, he may perform this same act every weekday morning, tens of thousands of times, binding the same words, to the same places, on his body. A daily physical renewal of a covenant that has outlasted nearly everything else human history has built. 2 small leather boxes, containing 4 passages from the Torah, written by hand, on parchment, exactly as it has been done for 2,000 years. Bound to the arm, near the heart. Bound to the head, above the mind. A daily reminder that belief is not enough on its own. That faith, to mean anything, must eventually become action. And in the Talmud's boldest teaching of all, an image of God himself carrying words about the people he loves. A covenant. Carried, the rabbis dared to imagine, on both sides. Before you go, I want to ask you something. The idea that devotion might flow in both directions, that God, in Jewish tradition, is imagined carrying words about his people, just as his people carry words about him. Does that change how you think about what devotion means? Write your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment, and this community has some of the most thoughtful conversations I have ever read anywhere on this platform. If this video gave you something to think about, hit the like button right now. It helps more people find these teachings. And subscribe, because next week, we are exploring another tradition worn directly on the body, one that connects to a story of sacrifice and devotion nearly 4,000 years old. You will not want to miss it. 1 tap to subscribe. Thank you for being here. Shalom.